Hey, Ryan, welcome to the Leaders Lab.
Ken, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And I know, the journey to where you're at now has not been a perfectly straight path. And it took you a little while, I think, to find being an entrepreneur. Can you walk us through kind of the more early days and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah. So, um, as your audience may know from the intro or whatever, I'm currently the CEO and founder of a national commercial insurance agency named Rogue Risk. We're kind of a first of its kind agency, um, and it's all based around this idea of human optimization. And I'm kind of starting with the end first because the story of how we got here will make more sense.
Sure.
This idea of human optimization is really pretty simple. In our particular industry, which is insurance, which is archaic to say the least, the way I looked at it was there's a 20-minute block of time. Let's say we have a 20-minute block of time with our customers. Well, in the standard process, traditional process that many agencies and many insurance organizations, excuse me, still employ today, 5 minutes of that time is actually spent with the customer, rapidly gathering information as quickly as you possibly can, because the archaic nature of how transactions are done and systems and processes, and there's still people who are using paper. The next 15 minutes of that, and they rush the person off the phone because they know it's going to take 15 minutes to get all that done, right? So that's kind of the trade-off is you're rushing through these relationships because you know there's all this work on the back end. And what I said was, I want to flip that on its head so that our people can spend 15 minutes building relationships, asking questions, et cetera. Now, granted, it's not always a 20-minute block. We're using this as an example. And then 5 minutes to actually do the transaction because we've set up, kind of the technology, or there's self-service or automation, VAs, et cetera, RPAs or bots in the background. So how I got there, it's not every little boy or girl's dream to be an insurance agent. I actually think that it's zero children's dream to be an insurance agent. And that was no different for me.
It'd be
How
kind
I
of
got,
funny though, right? Like going back to where it's like, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. I want to be like an
yes,
insurance broker, right? Like no one was
yeah,
saying that.
no, no one wants to do that. Everybody kind of, the story, and it's a joke inside the industry. Everyone kind of like falls into this business. And then once you get in, you realize that if you're slightly nerdy, there's actually a lot to dig into. And it has the best compensation model in all of business. Everybody wants to be a financial advisor. That is horrible work compared to being an insurance agent. Just the way the financial model works, if you're willing to put in a few years of kind of getting the snot kicked out of you, years 4, 5, 6, 7 in the insurance industry are absolutely incredible. And if you can sustain a 10, 20, 30-year career, you'll never want financially again and for the rest of your life. It's absolutely incredible. And that's what happens to most people. So for me, I was working a couple kind of dead end jobs. I was working for an American Express down in New York City. I wasn't even a name. I was employee M. I just remember the first three letters of my number. I was like employee M1X, whatever. Like that's the way my mail came. Like it was awful. And nothing against American Express, just my job. I was in some cube farm. Like there was
Right.
nothing. I wasn't going anywhere. And I met the woman that became my future wife. And unfortunately, we're not married anymore. But we worked for about 15 years. I met her, and her dad owned an insurance agency, a local insurance agency in Albany, New York. So about 2.5 hours north of the city. And I think he didn't want his little girl to be married to a bum. So like, this is like straight out of a mafia movie. He like pulled me out of this Christmas party and sat me down in this office in his house with like high leatherback chairs. And his son is like standing over his shoulder. And they kind of like made me this offer I couldn't refuse. So essentially like, becoming an insurance agent was like the dowry for my ex-wife's hand in
Sure.
marriage.
Yeah.
Um, and what I learned was the traditional way that business is done. This was a very traditional business, very traditional agency. This is 2006, 2007. I am kind of grinding on the streets. I'm putting 50,000 miles on my car, stopping from, strip plaza to strip plaza, handing my business card, trying to go to networking events, just doing business that very, very traditional way. And 18 months in, my father-in-law called me into his office and fired me. And I had to do what any self-respecting guy would do is I literally got down on my knees and was like, please do not make me go home to your little girl and tell her that I just got
What,
fired by you.
why was he letting you go? Were the results just
I
not
was,
there or what?
yeah, I was awful at it.
Yeah.
I could not at that time. I couldn't wrap my head around the value proposition. I felt like I was interrupting everyone's lives, like cold calling, stopping into businesses. I was like, man, what? I just couldn't. I wasn't trained enough. I wasn't confident enough in myself. I could not get myself to just, wedge my way in and disrupt your pattern disrupt. I mean, all the things that you have to
Yeah.
do
So
now.
you're doing like the apologetic approach, like, oh, I don't
Yes,
mean to be
like,
bothering
hey,
you, but like,
sorry to
yeah,
bother you,
yeah,
all this kind of stuff. And I would have like a physical reaction. Like I'd go to pick up the phone to cold call and like my hand would literally start shaking. Like I just couldn't even, it was crazy. I mean, and now if I needed to call somebody for a sale, I
right.
would just, I would do it. I wouldn't even think twice. But at that time, that wasn't the way for me. But what happened either through just pure circumstance or serendipity was he said yes. He kind of said, hey, I'll give you one more shot, but you got to turn things around. So I knew I had to do things differently. And what I decided to do at that time, LinkedIn had launched, blogging was a more of a thing, and I realized that what I could do, what I did have a propensity for was, and with the clients that I did have, I mean, I did write some posts. What I was very good at was taking these arcane topics and creating kind of a very understandable derivative for the everyday person.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how I sold. I was like, there's all this high level information that doesn't make sense. And, policy gives you something and then later it takes it away. And it's like, it's very hard to understand. But I was good at turning that into everyday language and creating scenarios that so I started just doing that in the digital space.
Mm,
And sure as shit, people started calling.
mm.
So basically I said, if I've only been in the business for a little over 2 years and I barely understand this stuff, like I got to look into these forms all the time. How much could the people that are actually buying these policies know? So every time I got asked a question, I mean, today this is commonly known as like Marcus Sheridan's They Ask You Answer. This is a very
Mhm,
ubiquitous thing. But like
mhm.
at the time I was doing that, like I would take these questions, I would answer them, and people started calling, and that changed my entire career. So I
Wow.
all of a sudden became very dialed into digital, SEO, social media, YouTube. On 2 separate occasions, I've had one of the top 5 YouTube channels in the entire world for insurance. Um, so I have kind of created this playbook that was really education first. And my big philosophy was insurance agents are no longer gatekeepers of information. Because for 400 years, if you wanted to know anything about insurance, you had to do business with me. I wasn't going to
Right.
tell you. You
Right.
had to literally buy things for me to share with you. And what I said was, no, I'm going to give you everything I know up front. And then in exchange, what I'm hoping is I deliver so much value to you that you decide to work with me. And that,
Exactly. I'm thinking this played into your style because you've got that apologetic sales approach because A, you're just naturally wired that way. B, what value are you really providing? Why are you interrupting them? And now you're leading with value. You're leading
yes.
with like, here's some information for you. And you can call me or not call me. It doesn't really matter, but it's out there now. And now the sales that are happening are more inbound instead of you having to go out and hunt and kill stuff. It sounds like.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So what I basically created was one of the first insurance industry inbound engines. And
Yeah.
over the course of the next 5 years, I got us to the point where I was creating on a $100 a month budget, was really just like web hosting. And occasionally I'd run like a paid ad or whatever. About 100 to 125 inbound leads to this local independent agency. And we were killing it in that regard. Unfortunately, my ex family, they did not, no matter how successful we were, they didn't believe in it. And basically came to me one day and was like, this isn't how we want to do business and all this kind of stuff. And after 8 years there, I essentially was told like, this isn't working, even though I was doing great. Which is
Right.
very odd and family business. Anyone who's listening to this, who's ever worked in a family business probably understands like the ridiculous decisions that are made by these people. But that was what it was. So I left there, became the chief marketing officer of a national insurance technology company. I got to meet tens of thousands of insurance agents, professionals, vendors. I've been in the 42nd floor of almost every independent insurance carrier in the country. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. I got to sit in rooms that I probably shouldn't have been part of and build connections, and I got to see the world. So I got to see this very kind of local business. Then I got to see the bigger world. This is like the hero's journey kind of thing. I got fired from that position because the CEO thought that I was a chief marketing officer. CEO thought I was coming after his job, which I was not, but ego is a soul killer. So
Right.
I got fired from that job, took another chief marketing officer job for a technology company that actually was a competitor to the independent insurance industry space. So I got to see local business. Then I got to see the national scope of our industry. Then I actually got to work for a competitor, which was great. And just kind of, I got let go from that position too, because I really had an intrinsic problem with the way that they were addressing the market. Unfortunately, morals and business don't always go well together. And when you speak up in meetings that are profit driven and you're talking from a morality standpoint, you tend to get ostracized, which is what ended up happening for me, which is fine. Another good life lesson. I thought that and I promise I'm getting to this, but people are probably
No, it's all
aware of
good.
how crazy my path has been. So I technically not fired, but strongly asked to leave is probably the best way to put that. So I kind of had a moment where I was like, maybe I'm not right for the insurance industry, right? Like I kind of got asked to leave from this local agency that people that I was related to or, related to through marriage. This other opportunity that I was at for 4 years that I thought was amazing. I somehow put myself in a position where like they thought that I was doing, you know what I mean? And then I had this other job that didn't really. So I actually became the CEO of a fitness franchise here in the Albany area, 6 locations. And I said, okay, this is the next best thing because fitness is a very big part of my life. I love to work out. I'm actually in the middle of 75 hard, if anyone knows what that is.
Oh yeah.
38 days in, feel amazing.
Awesome.
So I joined it. I became the founder of this fitness franchise. Came to me and said, hey, like I know you are looking for something. I'm a gym guy. You're a business guy. I really want to take my business to the next level. I want to work on the workouts and the experience in the gym, and I need someone to run the business and grow it. And I was like, geez, this is amazing. Like I get to wear Lululemon to work every day. And part of my job is working out at noon with the members. Like this is great. And it was for 9 months. And in 9 months, we grew from 2,100 members to just over 3,000 members. We added 2 new locations. We were absolutely crushing it. And the founder at that point decided that the business was, and this is verbatim, quote, fun again, and that I was his largest expense. And he fired me on the spot at 8:36 a.m. on a Monday. It was, he literally said, you did a great job, but this really seems fun again. And you're my largest expense. So have a nice day. That was literally how he fired me. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, so what you're telling me is I did a great job. And because I did a great job, now you want me to leave.
You made it fun for him again, based on your efforts. Yeah.
That's essentially what it was, we had figured out a way and there was like some things that, some small changes that needed to be made. And it was really just operational shit. I mean, he was right. Like having the experience that I had over a decade and a half in both, growing the local business and then in all these executive positions, there were some simple things that needed to be changed in there that were not, nothing against him. He just hadn't seen it in other places. That once we made those changes, profit margins went up. We were pumping people in. We were able to get more people in the classes without losing any experience. So we were like growing margin, growing revenue, growing members. It was really, really exciting. And frankly, I was like, this is going to be my career. Like I could do this and grow this thing across the country. It was a great model, whatever. And he just was like, I'm making too much money and I don't want to pay you anymore. Wow. So when that happened, I pretty much thought that was a sign from the universe that it was time to work for myself. Yeah. And that's where I came up with the idea for Rogue Risk, my agency. I basically started mapping out this idea of, okay, like the traditional model of business isn't the future. I also don't think, which is highly over-indexed on humans. I also do not think the future is this highly over-indexed version of technology. Now, at the time, if you said AI, people thought you were crazy. I mean, obviously today that's the case, but like this is 2019. There, I was like, I also don't think going too far towards technology is the answer either, because all technology, and this is something people need to think about when they think about AI. All technology is trying to humanize. So
Right.
the mistake that we can make is going toward, is dehumanizing our business through technology. So like if all, if AI is if all AI is doing, all the improvements are to make it more human, we need to be very careful not to mistake technology and automation
As a
for
replacement.
because
Yeah.
that's not what people want. People
Right.
want more human. They just
Right.
want it in a more efficient and effective manner. So
Right.
that's where I came up with the concept of human optimized agency. I launched my agency on that. I did not know. I launched it on March 9th of 2020. I did not know 7 days later the entire world would shut down, but we survived. And in April of 2022, we were actually wholly acquired by a PE company. And I'm in the earnout period of that endeavor now.
Oh, you were just bought this year?
2022.
Oh, 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, one of the things when you're talking about the intake, you're talking about 20 minutes of intake, and that 15 minutes of it is, somebody hammering on keys, and then 5 minutes of actually getting to know you. And I just was doing something like that online with homeowners, and yeah, I'm looking for AI or a bot or whatever to take the place of the meaningless part of the exchange, not of the meaningful part of the exchange. And I think the other part that people are missing a little bit with AI is, if it's completely farmed out, then we actually don't need you anymore either, right? And everything just goes to the lowest bidder, or everything becomes commoditized at that point, right? So I think, if anything, if industries like insurance or any industry can leverage AI to enhance relationships, not to replace them, I think that's,
Yeah. I think we have one of two paths. There's very few models that I know of that this isn't true for. You either have to go bespoke, small, 1,000 true fans kind of business, and understand, and then go and higher ticket, higher margin, higher touch, all that kind of stuff. Or you have to achieve results on a massive scale with a low margin business. I don't know. I think for more people, bespoke is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Find 1,000 people that are willing to pay you an amount of money that allows you to live the life that you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Is way, way more reasonable. It to me, it differentiates you. It makes you something that people can grab onto, and then obviously that 1,000 can grow with time. But like, the idea is that I think too many business leaders, let's say middle market to small business down to individual organizations across the spectrum, are looking at enterprise level organizations and saying, I want that. And you can't compete with them.
Right.
You cannot compete with them at that level. I don't care what AI you have. I don't care what Twitter PDF you downloaded. That's a 7-step process to automate your business. You're never going to compete with those guys unless you are bespoke, unless you are this unique, and that to me is the path that makes sense. Like, so with our business, Rogue Risk, I didn't name it Hanley Insurance Services. We are not for everybody. If you need to press the flesh and see your agent eyeball to eyeball, and that's what you want, that's not what you're going to get from us. What you are going to get is enterprise level service, but you're going to get it in a digital format. And our whole thing is, I'm a firm believer in small business, is that I wanted to take the level of service that organizations were getting up here in the Fortune 5,000 and bring that level of service down to small business. The only way that we could do that and still make money was to remove physical spaces, was to remove, face-to-face kind of breathing the same air type stuff. We had to get rid of that stuff. Because it's too expensive to then offer small business the same level of service. Now, most organizations who work with small business, particularly in the insurance industry, the small business gets kind of hosed, right? They get like a generic bland, choose A, B, or C. And then if you don't like A, B, or C, then you still have to choose A, B, or C. And that's what it is. And I wanted to provide a service where I said, look, there is a better and different way, in my opinion, that you can get exactly what you need. But what you can't then also have is come into my office and sit with me for an hour and a half and talk about your business. And that's what we've developed in the process that we go through. And we have a very specific questioning process that we go through. We call it our one call close process. And to be clear for everyone, that doesn't mean we close you on the call. It means I want to be respectful of your time and our time.
You don't need a second intake.
We do not need a second intake call.
Yeah.
So that is kind of, some of the processes that we've built that make us, I think, special and unique in this marketplace.
Don't you think you can take, so first of all, I mean, I think there's a few things like in your kind of journey of becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, first of all, the universe told you time and time again, almost like you kept getting yourself into situations where your opinions, skill set, and all of that. I'm even looking back at the family-owned business and going, well, why didn't they want you to go there? Well, because it wasn't their idea eventually, right? It's just not their idea. It doesn't feel good to give up control. You're not going to run that business. They're making that clear. Later you come in and the CEO feels like, hey, you're coming for my job. Like you're just, there's one like, we want you to be strong, but not too strong. Right. Like yes. I want you to be strong within the borders that I create. So you figure this out, you go out on your own and you do it with insurance because that's the business that was sort of spoon fed to you in a way. That's the one that you got put into. Yep. But what you're talking about here is easily replicatable into other businesses, what you did. Have you done that yet? Do you have plans to do that?
Yeah. So I do sales coaching and leadership coaching in other industries as well. I do a lot of keynote speaking. I've been speaking for almost 12 years now across the country.
Right.
I've actually done gigs in 45 states. I got 5 more states to go, which is kind of fun. It'll be fun when I get to having done a gig in every single state in the country. Nice. But yeah, so these are completely applicable. There's no there is no like nothing about this is specific to insurance. Now, I've applied it to insurance. I could teach it to insurance agents. I do all the time. Obviously, that's a natural fit. But if you have a sales organization, the concepts that I talk about, both from a remote leadership perspective, and one of the things that I get asked a lot about that I will talk to a lot of times, this is a small group, small batch, like leadership conferences or workshops or masterminds, is about the idea of exactly what you described. How do you handle high intensity entrepreneurial employees? Because that's what I was, right? And truth be told, I'm even dealing with it again now with the parent company that bought us. Is like, what I find is a lot of CEOs and a lot of business owners want this shiny object. They see this person, this man or this woman who is just full of energy, full of ideas, hard charging, outspoken, right? Which is, exactly the way that I am. I have zero fear of failure. It's, my whole way is if you don't break it, you don't know how to fix it. Right. So you just keep pushing, keep testing, keep going. And that looks amazing until you have that inside your organization and you're not culturally set up to handle that. Right. All of a sudden you go, you can't do that. Right. Or, we just dealt with an issue where our entire company had been based on the Google ecosystem. And for 3.5 years, everything ran through our Google account, everything. And they've just recently forced us to move to Microsoft. And we're working at about 30% efficiency now. And when I brought this up to leadership and I said, just so you guys are aware, we're at about 30% efficiency right now. And they're why and all. And I'm like, because to you guys, this is nothing, but to an entrepreneur, we're a 25-person organization that probably operates like a 35 to 40-person organization in terms of our efficiency and how much we have going on. They just can't wrap their head around things like that. So I bring this up. Now I'm a troublemaker. Now I need to have conversations with IT, and now I need conversations with the CEO because I am not just fitting in when my perspective is as an entrepreneur. Now, I went from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. My perspective is, guys, I get that in your brains, this bureaucratic organization brain, just get everybody into the same thing. But what you didn't take into account is our business unit cannot operate the same way. So and my point in saying this is that it's a microcosm for a larger issue. If you're going to be a CEO and you're going to purchase or hire entrepreneurs, you
Yeah.
cannot have the Borg mindset. It
Right.
can't be assimilate or die.
Right.
You will get, so what we do is we, I have a business partner that I do these with. And what we do is work people through, what are some exercises? How do we culturally set these things up? How do you give people leeway to make mistakes and be different while still maintaining a level of control? Because obviously you can't just, some of these entrepreneurs will spin off the world if you let them, right? So there's a balance, and a lot of it just comes down to communication and setting expectations, which even for highly successful in air quotes from the outside leaders, are incredibly difficult things to do. Setting expectations and communication, in my opinion, are the two largest efficiencies that leaders have, especially in dealing with entrepreneurs.
I think it's funny because I've been an entrepreneur. I am now, and I've also worked for big corporations. And yeah, I think the whole, why do you need to work on a Mac? Why do you need Gmail? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? And the idea of this is one thing in my list of 32 things today, and you're not at the top of it. So why do I care that much about your Gmail? And can you just fix it and make it work? And why do you always got to be a pain in the ass? Why can't you just do it the way we need you to do it? And it's like, well, that we created it by not doing it the way you want us to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like you bought something that is unique. And I think big companies doing acquisitions, really, I mean, the ones that are going to be more successful at the integration of those have to do it with in mind that we bought this mindset, we bought this, and rather than fight it, we need to embrace it, right? And certainly that doesn't mean if someone's personality or I don't even say personality. If someone's totally out of alignment with your culture, that's different, right? But when we're talking about tools, like the difference between Microsoft and Google, it's all someone needs to do is sign off on that, right?
Dude, here's the thing. Yeah. To the large parent company, the large company CEO, this is they see this as a nothing burger.
What's a speck of dust? That's why it doesn't get done.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yes.
Why is this just in your mind? Like in our company's mind, I've gotten 17 emails today about this move, and we're 3 weeks in. Right. I can't do this. This doesn't work. This doesn't connect anymore. This isn't happening. We're not tracking this. So like, I'm going, whoa, what am I supposed to do? And then I bring it up and it's like, head pat, figure it out. And it's like, okay, by figure it out, do you mean take it all back and rebuild what we had built originally? Like, so it's very difficult. And this is where I found this grind multiple times, is that if you are that big enterprise level CEO and you're looking to do M&A, you have to make one of two decisions. I would say, don't buy the entrepreneur. Buy the company. All right. Get the next thing I build and the next thing I sell, you will be buying me out. I will not be sticking around. Right. Because what I found is that they see this shiny object, and I get why they see it, right? They want the thing. And in their mind, I think they honestly believe, man, we'd love to, our company's big and maybe slow and whatever, and we'd love to have this thing in here. But which you either have to allow that thing to be its own, you continue to be its own unique thing and grow and be part of it, or get that person out, not because you don't like them or don't think they can do a good job, but understand they will continue to cause friction, as I do, right? I cause friction because I'm trying to build an organization that is the thing that you bought. And when all these assimilations happen, you can't be that same thing. Yeah. Especially if they're that young. Now, this is different if a company hits a certain maturation level and it's not as entrepreneurial anymore. It's just different. All right. So but when you buy true 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old companies that are still in growth mode and you try to assimilate them into a big company, you have to over communicate. You have to set very clear expectations. You have to do your due diligence on what clearly makes them different and allows them to do their job. Otherwise, you find yourself in situations where there's a lot of friction that shouldn't be there. That feels unnecessary. It causes feelings and emotions that people don't want to have. And these are some of the activities that I try to work people through when we're talking about these things. Because I've unfortunately now been on both sides. I've acquired as well in other positions, and now been acquired, and it's, there's just, it's not what people think. They think they're
Right.
getting the shiny object, and unfortunately, you get all of it. I guess that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
you don't just get the really cool outward thing. You
Yeah.
get all the stuff, and you have to be prepared for that.
You get the outward thing, you get the eccentric founder, you
Yep.
get the high producing individual contributor that's also a pain in the ass sales guy. You get you get all of it.
You get all of it.
And it's not always wrapped in a pretty package. And you know what's funny is for most big companies, I think then when the acquisition doesn't work, they'll say, yeah, it just wasn't really culturally compatible, and it's like, maybe it was, maybe it just needed to be retrofitted a little bit, to make it work. So I'm curious, like outside of your industry, because everything I've found and read on you is all kind of insurance based, but I know it applies anywhere, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
When you're doing coaching, when you're doing keynotes, you're applying these same principles outside of the insurance agents or industry as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's, there really isn't anything like, so the selling of an insurance product, so actually talking about the product is obviously specific to insurance.
Right.
But like the sales process, how we do our inbound marketing, because, like leading with education. So like walking people through this kind of inbound engine or the one call close process, so that's what people are interested in. That is basically a mashup of a couple different sales styles, and then high vol, then some internal work that we have done and some case studies that we've done, and then based off our own beats, and then some clients and stuff where really, and I'm happy to walk you through if you're interested in what like the high level of it, but that process works for every industry inbound. So this is the key. And this is where people will get this wrong. Or just that wrong is the wrong word. This can be confused. This is not a process for heavy outbound outreach. That's a different process. And actually my partner teaches, the guy that my partner in this side business, he teaches that side of it. He's a master. He's a ninja at outbound. That's his shit. There is a separate way of talking to people who come to you inbound. And that is where a lot of companies get confused. So what we have been able to clearly define is that the way you handle an outbound lead, the way you handle someone you meet at a networking event, the way you handle a referral is very different from the way that you handle an inbound lead, someone who filled out a form either by seeing an ad or watching a piece of content or whatever, right? Download a lead magnet, a white paper, a case study, an on-demand webinar, whatever. Those inbound leads are very different in the way that you have to handle them. Their mentality is different. And what we try to teach is this idea of, thinking of it like a video game. And the goal of the video game, if we say you start at 0 and you need to get to 10, is that this spectrum is trust. And trust is very synonymous with sales, and everyone kind of understands that. Well, when someone is referred to you, let's say they start at a 7, right? And you got to get them to 10. So the reason we love referrals in every business in the world, we love it's because people are starting at a 7. Right. They have, Ken told them that Ryan's the guy, and just call Ryan and they're already there. Right. You meet somebody at a networking event, you've pressed the flesh, you've held hands, you've looked at them eye to eye. Maybe they start at a 5, right? Mm-hmm. Outbound. You've done some wedging, you've talked them through it, you've found pain, maybe they start at a 3, right? When someone calls you inbound, they can literally be anywhere on the spectrum. And that's the part that we have to work on, is that they could be at a 10 because they've watched 17 of your YouTube videos and they are just know you're the person. They know exactly who you are, exactly what they want. Bam. Or they could come in at a 0 because they saw an ad and you caught them in a moment of pain and they filled out a form or they called a phone number, and they may not know you from Adam or Eve, but they you're now on the phone with them. So we have to start that process very differently. And, how we do that is what I call the one call close process, because, and just to finish this state, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, all good.
The reason that we want to focus on one call is there's two reasons why we want to focus on one call. One, we want to be very respectful of that person's time. Nobody wants to call multiple people for a thing. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you're selling bricks, accounting services, or marketing services, or t-shirts. No one wants to call multiple vendors. Right. Nobody. So we're being respectful of their time. 1. 2, when you have to reschedule a sales call, your conversion ratio goes down by somewhere in our experience, somewhere around 30%. So if your close ratio is, let's say, if our process on validated leads closes somewhere between 80 and 89% of the time for businesses that implement it properly. There's a filtering factor, but when you get to validated leads, bam, you're closing, close to 90% of them. When you have to schedule a second call, that goes down to 50 or 40%. And so staying away from having to schedule that second call is why working through this process is so important. And that's kind of what we teach people, is this inbound process.
Yeah, I think, you're coming from such a great industry to develop that, because of all the industries that you've looked at and helped coach, is there any industry that needs more inbound information to close a sale than insurance? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm sort of thinking, like, if you build it for insurance, you can almost scale it down for anybody else, right? If it's a 40-step intake for insurance, for recruiting, like what I do, maybe it's 10. Yep. For, selling hot tubs, maybe it's 17. Yep. I don't know, but it just seems like you guys have a very big top of the filter to get them down to the bottom.
And it took me a while to realize that fact, to be honest with you. It wasn't until I took this process and started sharing it with other companies and workshops and stuff outside of our industry that I started to realize that there are some industries that need like 3 pieces of information to turn around a proposal. And but the same, so that was the first thing. And actually I made some early mistakes when I was teaching this, because I started to discount the effort needed to close the business because of the number of pieces of data necessary. And it was an early mistake that I made when I started teaching this about 5 years ago. And for the first year or so, I kind of discounted that. I'd be like, and what I realized is that the data is not our, and this is what I started saying, the collection of data is not our value proposition. We have to extract that from our brain, that as whether we're inbound service professionals, inbound sales professionals, whatever our job title is, account managers, doesn't matter, account executives, the collection of data is not your value proposition. You need to have that person by the end of that call so convinced that you are the solution provider for them that the data collection is an afterthought. Because when I was doing the job that I told you guys about, where I was the chief marketing officer and I ended up getting fired, but it was, we were a part of our company. There were 2 sides of our company. We're half media company, half lead generator, essentially. And the lead generation side, we would push phone calls. And part of the deal was we could whisper listen to the phone calls on recording for quality assurance purposes. So I've literally listened to thousands of independent insurance agents take inbound phone calls. So I got to, and they were terrible at it. And this is where, so this is like 2014, 2015, which is really where I started to develop this methodology. And then obviously, now I teach it, but like, and we use it every day in our business. That there were 2 instincts that killed a lot of the deals. The first was immediately trying to disqualify people. Right. They were so worried about, quote unquote, wasting time that they were asking questions or pushing people away without really giving people a chance. And one of the big mistakes is around price shoppers. Right. Someone would call and they would be focused on price, and immediately these sales professionals would start pushing people off the phone because they thought they were tire kickers. And I had to do a lot of work to start to dissuade them from the idea that just because someone leads with price doesn't mean that price is the most important thing to them. It just means that was the impetus in that moment to get them to pick up the phone. And that through a series of questions, we could find out what other value and
Well, it's also like if I have State Farm and I'm calling you guys and I don't know a lot about you guys, then what I have to talk about is, this is my policy and this is what I pay for it.
Yes.
So how can you help me?
Oh,
now, at the end of the day, I might not even known what I was paying for that policy until 5 minutes before I called you, because I had to look it up so that I had something to talk to you about or something to compare if you were to give me a price quote, right?
Yeah. And the problem is when a lot of salespeople hear people lead with price, they get very squirrely,
Yeah.
or they make the mistake of immediately diving
You're
deep on
diving in.
price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Countering
So
it. Yeah.
that's one. The second thing that would kill these deals is before they even sometimes knew the person's name or what they actually wanted, they would start collecting data. Well, what's the address of your business? What's your phone number? How many employees do you have? How much? You don't even know. Like, I called one guy after he did a call just to like check in or whatever. And I was talking through the call with him. And I just said, do you even know what he wanted, what this guy wanted? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, and we listened to the call. We were doing it over Zoom. And I said, my man, you never even asked him what he wanted. You went from answering the phone to immediately gathering information and got off the phone. Do you even know what policies this guy wanted quoted? And the guy, like, he's like, I think he wants workers' compensation. And I'm like, you think?
Yeah, just made it up.
I was like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, so we focus. So I do, until we get them through this kind of 5-step process that we try to teach them, we don't even collect any data.
Right.
And, and really, and just to give people, and again, I feel like I'm like selling this, but I'm not, but like,
no, it's all good.
This is, I find this shit so interesting because it's all like behavioral psychology stuff.
Yeah.
So if anyone's read, and most sales professionals have, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, open-ended questions. There's a ton of books. I got one over there that I'm rereading. Actually, I think it's Jim Camp's, How to Get to Know or something like that. Whatever. I read a ton. So, I'm going to mash up the book name. I apologize. But, the idea, so the very first thing we say when we get a call would be like, so you call me, I pick up the phone and, hey, Ken, thanks for calling Rogue Risk. Really appreciate it. What's going on, man? How can I help? And then you shut up.
Yeah.
Stop talking. Because what sales professionals do is go, we're best in class, national agency. We got 52 carriers. I've been in the business for 17 years. I'm licensed and obviously stable. And you're like, the person's like, I don't give a fuck about any of that stuff. You know what I mean? I don't care about any of that. Introduce yourself, warm, say, how can I like, what's up? How can I help? And then you just silence. Silence is the ultimate sales tool, because what'll happen is that person will barf on you all the things. And what it'll be is like, I'm struggling. Like, I got to get on these jobs sometimes and I need a certificate of insurance. So if you're in the commercial world and contractors need certificate of insurance, I need, and man, sometimes it takes 2 days for my agent to get me. And I'm going, okay, fast certificate of insurance. Man, I keep getting auto renewed every year. They never even reach out to me. I haven't heard from them in like 5 years. Okay. They just want a little more touch.
Lack of communication.
Blah, 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 blah. So I write down all these things, right? And maybe one of them is price. Maybe, hey, my price went up 25%. We're in a hard market right now, so everyone's insurance rates are going up. It's actually a pretty tough time. But so I write all these things down and then I just start validating them, right? So step one is just ask a open-ended, honest question and be quiet. They're going to tell you what they need. Okay. So then the next is you go, okay, so I heard certificates of insurance are very important. We have a 2-hour turnaround guarantee. Is that okay for you? Oh, it is. Okay, great. Beep. It sounds to me like you're not getting enough communication. If you got an outreach, maybe a 6-month midterm and then 3 months before your renewal, that kind of lets you know what we were seeing in the marketplace, what was going on. And if we thought reshopping was a good idea, that would just make you feel a little more comfortable. Yes, it would. Okay, great. Boom. Yep. So I take the 2 or 3 things down. All right. The next thing you have to do is set expectations for what's going to happen next. We are so bad about this. We're so bad as sales professionals at setting expectations. We just assume they know what's going to happen next. So, I'll say, then, I'm kind of going through this quickly, but the idea is then you go, okay. So here's the deal. The good news is I've worked with dozens of organizations just like yours, or companies just like yours, et cetera. We only do commercial insurance. So obviously if it were personal or it was a personal product, a B2C product, you'd say something different, but I'd say I've worked with dozens of companies just like yours. So you're in good hands, man. We got you. We got you is a dagger shot, right? It is an absolute pimp move because everybody wants to be got, right? Like you call your accountant, let's say your accountant moves out of town, you got to find a new accountant. You call an accountant and you explain your situation. That accountant goes, No worries, man. I got you.
Right.
You just all of a sudden you can feel through the phone, the
The
shoulders
ease.
relax, the
Mm-hmm.
body relax. They go, oh, thank God I don't have to make another call, right?
Right.
We got you. That's what I said.
Right.
And I said, okay, here's the deal. So I have 3 carriers that I know are interested in what you're looking for. There's one in particular that I really hope we get into. Okay. Now, the reason I do that, because there's always 3 or more, and there is always one that I hope they get into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tell them specifically what it is. And for those listening, this is kind of a sales trick, but it's true too. And the reason I say that is because, one, I want them to know that I know the market. So that's why I say there's 3 companies in particular that I know will take you. Then I say there's one specifically that I want to get you into because what it shows is expertise. It shows I know the market.
Trying to drill it down.
And I have expertise, and that there is a special program for you. So once I say that, then the next thing I say is, look, here's what happens next. I gotta get to work. I'm gonna gather some information from you. We're gonna do that at the end. But now is when I go to work. Once I have the information from you that you're gonna send me, I can either get it over the phone, but that takes like an extra 25 minutes, or I can just email you. You fill out the information, send it back to me. What do you want to do? Everybody says fill out the information. Okay, great. I said, once I get that information back, I go to work, right? I'm going to come back to you with a video proposal. And guys, every industry in the world should be using video proposals. You cannot, unless you are selling a hardcore physical product, maybe there are some edge cases. Even if you're selling fiberglass swimming pools, you should be using video proposals. And I'm going to explain why. And I know we're coming up against a number here, so I'll talk.
Oh, okay.
So I said, we're going to do a video proposal. And the video proposal, this is not a hack or a trick. There is an absolute positive psychological reason that we use video proposals. So I'm going to send you a video proposal. It is going to be exactly what I recommend. And we can always make tweaks, but this is going to be exactly what I recommend. And it comes in 3 parts. The first is just going to be a high level overview. The second is going to be an actual video where I break down your insurance policy and why I think this policy, these coverages are what's right for you. And then I'm going to include the actual proposals from the carrier that you can download and see exactly what I see. And the reason I do this is because I want you to know everything I know. And the next conversation we have, I want you to come from a position of power because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you to waste mine. We should be able to have a very honest conversation. So I'm going to give you everything I have. How's that sound? That sounds great. No one's ever even said that to him before, ever. I don't care what industry you're in. No one's ever said that to anybody before. So that's what you say to them. And then I say, once you get that, look it over, whatever. And if it looks good, you just let me know. We'll put it in place. If we need to make changes, we'll do that. How's all that sound? That sounds great. Okay. And now here's the closing question that you end with. Hey man, so just so I'm clear, like what would make this a valuable relationship to you? Some people will say, hey, you just do what you already said and you're good. Bam. Some people say, you know what? Just be honest with me. But sometimes people will give you one more thing that you didn't have, right? One more little piece. Okay. So you get that. So those are the 5 steps. Then you do the video proposal. Here's what you say in the video proposal. Price should be no more than 3 seconds. Hey man, here's, so the company is Hartford. Man, I'm really glad we got you with Hartford. That was the company I was hoping we were going to get you in. So now you bring it back to I have one company out of 3 that I really hope you get in. So now they feel like they're in that special program, right? And this could go for you selling t-shirts, you're selling pools, you're selling recruiting services. I got you in this one packet, whatever. So then, I got you in this carrier, but I hit price real quick. You can see right here, $1,700 a year, super great price. Happy with that. But here's the deal, man. Like you said, COIs were important to you. You wanted to get COI. We can pump out Hartford COIs in like 20 minutes. So really quick turnaround time, always a 2-hour guarantee, but we can get these turned around really quick. Hartford's the kind of company we're getting notifications up to 120 days before renewal. So we'll know what's going on well before we'll communicate with you. So now all I do is spend time on the friggin' things
all the pain points
that they told me were their important things. I don't even talk about price. I barely talk about coverage. I'm talking about the things that were important to them and I send it to them. Now here's why we use video proposals, because nobody looks at it during the day. Nobody. They look at it at 7:00 at night and they watch it 2 or 3 times. They forward it to somebody. I can see other users come in and watch it. That might be a spouse, a business partner, whoever, right? Other people watch it. And then what happens is behind the
Sorry,
scenes,
that's not me, man. I don't know how that happened.
you know what it is you, Zoom now does
I know, and
hand
it's
gestures.
turned off. Everyone on my team cracks up because it's turned off, and it just does it when it wants to do it, man. So
Just
it's
so
not you.
everyone's listening
I
at
just gave him a
home,
thumbs
he
down
just
in the
gave
middle
the
of
thumbs
this.
down.
Zoom has this automated recognize hand gestures feature that I can't master.
So just to finish this, they
Yeah,
watch it a bunch of times. They watch it after hours. No matter how big the account is, we've had $100,000 premium accounts. They don't watch the proposal until after hours. They
right.
watch it. They watch it multiple times. They may forward it to people. And then here's the beauty of this. You've walked them through this whole process. They feel incredibly comfortable. You've pushed the trust meter up to 10. You've done exactly what you said you were going to do. You delivered this video proposal to them. And all you get back is, this looks great. Let's do it.
Right.
Now you never have to schedule that second call. Now, occasionally someone will say, hey, I have a few questions, and that's fine. But then those calls, they want to
They
schedule.
generated it.
They generated the call versus me going, hey man, can we meet at 2, or that stupid sales tactic of I have 10 a.m. and 1:45 p.m. Which one works for you? Like, those are stupid hack tactics.
Right.
Push, allow the people to feel like they're part of the process. And you work this process, you can fit it into any business. And I promise you, you will see your inbound sales conversion rate skyrocket.
Yeah, I dig it.
So much fun.
Yeah. I really dig that, listen, the second call, especially like if you're always doing second calls, what's wrong with your process, right? Why? I mean, why can't you figure out in advance what you're always asking in the second call and just get it done in the first call, right? Like, and do the stuff. We're using video in what we do. And have for a while now, a couple of years. And yeah, it's so impactful. Even instead of sending an email, or sometimes I'll send an email outside our normal sales process, sometimes just to inform someone, like, here's an email and here's 90 seconds of me highlighting what I'm talking about, right? With a shared screen or whatever, instead of, I'm not the best typer in the world and I can't communicate everything. I'm a faster talker than I am a typer, probably like you. And let me just show you what I mean instead of writing it, so it's 100%. Such a cool way to go. How does our audience get in touch with you to learn more about you, your programs, your podcast, all that stuff? And we'll put it all, of course, in our show notes.
If you're interested in this kind of stuff, the best way to find me is Finding Peak. I have a newsletter. You can, it's completely free. Also have a podcast with the same name, Finding Peak, where, it's all about peak performance in life and business. So we talk about leadership, sales. We even dig into some topics, and I think you probably could agree with this. Most of the businesses that I come across, like, these tactical shit is super fun to talk about. Obviously, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
But as I've developed into my career, I'm 42 years old. I've been an executive for more than a decade now in different companies. I found that it isn't actually the tactics that most businesses get knocked down by. It's by life stuff, health stuff, interrelational communication stuff. So we try to, at Finding Peak, what I try to do is help people understand. Yeah, we do talk about leadership a lot. We talk about sales a lot, growth for sure. But then we also dive into some of the other things about keeping our bodies healthy, our minds healthy, et cetera, that allow leaders to be the best versions of themselves. And then from there, you can reach out to me about any of the workshops and podcasts, same name. If you're interested in our agency and just seeing what we do and seeing what we're all about, it's roguerisk.com. So findingpeak.com is this kind of stuff. Rogue Risk is the business.
Amazing. Thanks so much. So good to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too. This is tons of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.